I just when you look at sort of what was it Maribor? I think they played Chelsea. Was it something like 5-0 or something like that? Now,
Yeah.
could you imagine the team that we have right now playing against a Chelsea or any of those top teams in Europe? During, especially after the first half last night or this morning watching the game, first thing I thought at half time was, thank God we aren't in the Champions League, because we would have been getting absolutely smacked left, right,
The
and
way we
centre.
played last night, absolutely. The way we played.
Absolutely.
Said it last night, Pat.
And that was just it's just I guess where we are at the moment, but and I just think it's a long way back to get to Champions League quality. I think we've obviously let a lot of good players go and not replaced them with that quality. It's a long way back. So we had that little spell and it was all good and we're all happy and we're thinking, right, from a position of strength we'll move on, but it's just we're just gone backwards. It's actually no, I was going to say embarrassing, not embarrassing. It's actually sad watching us now. It's actually genuinely sad because you think what we had just a few years ago, and all of a sudden we'll just get guys that we don't have faith in pretty much the whole team. You know, and it's like you think of guys, you think of guys, and this is another one I was again thinking about during the game last night was we're forever saying, you know, we need a guy who can just put the foot in the ball and do a pass and do this and do that. But we seem to keep coming up against these guys in European games. That guy, I don't know if it's the right term, Budescu, I think his name was just controlling the game for big phases of it, you know.
And he wouldn't cost a lot, Pat. He wouldn't cost a lot to try and sign.
But there was a similar guy that I think played for Maribor, whose name I cannot remember, and did the same thing against us. The sort of player that we keep saying, Celtic need a player that can do, A, B, and C. We're coming up against these guys, but how can these other teams find these, gems? And it's teams that were like you could, in theory, go and pick these players up for a reasonable fee. Yeah. And we don't do it. We end up with Charlie Mulgrew, which is no offence. It's just, and I've said this several times. If we're putting our faith in Charlie Mulgrew to help us progress in Europe, oh man, I don't see how on earth we can do anything in Europe with him in the centre midfield. And I've got no real dislike of him. I think he's not a bad player, but when it comes to real quality, I mean, Brown's all right, and Johansson's I guess his form's like the whole team. It's up and down. It's up and down. Yeah.
We saw the best of them against the Ross County, and we saw flashes of some silly mistakes and.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
this is his game last night again.
But Mulgrew last night was dreadful. He could hardly even put a pass together, and then it got to that stage where he was just trying to prove himself so much. He's hitting shots from 20 yards out. I mean, you're out of form. Jeez, man, you play the percentage pass. You do something that's it's going to get another player in position. He committed
to Cardinal sin last night, playing a ball across his own box, and it very near cost a goal.
Yeah,
you're taught at school not to do that.
Yeah, against a even slightly better team than Astra last night, that would have cost a goal. In a Champions League game, that was a definite goal that he would have cost us last night.
Against Zagreb or Salzburg last night, we'd have got smacked. Yeah. Either of those teams would have got absolutely smacked. And that's the sort of disappointing thing. I mean, we've got ourselves in a great position, and it is a genuinely good position. Yeah. But my God, I mean, can you imagine coming up, just say, for argument's sake, it was Chelsea, finished third in their section, and we end up playing them in the Europa League. Good Lord. They would take 7 or 8 off us.
No bother.
That's genuinely how bad things are.
If we played the same way that we played last night, but see, again, this is where I'm a great believer that as Celtic, for all we dominate in Scotland, we're still, when it comes to Europe, we're an underdog in any game we play. So some of our best performances in Europe are those games that we never usually get to see in Scottish football, where we are on the back foot and we're getting hammered and our keeper's the busiest player on the park. Like I said, the Barca games in the past and Bayern Munich, AC Milan, any Champions League games you care to mention, actually, there's something about us and our mentality, and okay, we've maybe not been tested fully in the Champions League group stages under the Ronnie Dyla regime, but I don't know, there's still something that says to me that when we know we're going into a game as the underdogs, we're maybe mentally better prepared for it and we'd put a better show on. Whereas going into that game last night, I think we were fully expected to win and win quite comfortably. And it never happened because we either, as you said earlier on, Al, they were an unknown quantity. We'd never played them okay. The guys would have scouted them, but we'd never actually faced them at all ever before in the history of the two clubs.
Especially under a new manager.
Yeah, and that's right. They did. We've got a newish manager. They've got a new manager. So they were a bit of an unknown quantity coming in, and I think they're going to be a bit more difficult to play against than the results against Salzburg and Zagreb when those two teams humped them before. I think there'll be a different quantity for the last 3 games.
Yep.
Well, there was an interesting guy getting interviewed on, if you've ever listened to 90 Minute Cynic, and they had a Romanian reporter on, and he said that the club and the fans and all that sort of stuff would actually have more confidence in getting a result at Celtic Park than they would at home.
All right.
Because apparently the fans,
they're better away from home.
Yep.
I heard
that.
Right.
Yeah, even on the commentary last night, they said that they've won something like 5 out of 7 away games in Europe. It was something ridiculous like that. So, but apparently they've just moved. So the teams are newly formed. I think they're not newly formed. The team have been relocated to another, city, and the fans apparently just haven't taken to them. So there's like a tiny.
Have they moved from Astra to Corsa?
Oh.
No, that's to another. They've moved from Vauxhall to Holden, Kev.
Ah, yes.
Yes, see. You wouldn't get that joke if you didn't live in Australia. But yeah, so this guy was talking about how he actually fancied them to get something at Parkhead, which I found really bizarre. And he's going, but when it comes to the home games, the fans are on the back. They don't get big crowds. They just don't know how to play against teams at home and this sort of stuff. So again, we'll see how that one goes. One little thing and I saw this on Twitter. I was either at half time or after the game, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember reading it and going, "Are you serious?" And this was along the lines of, "Why is everyone creaming themselves about Craig Gordon making saves that he should be making?"
Oh, who said that?
I just looked at it and I went,
Mr. Creamy.
Oh, I could not believe what I'd read. I was like, "You seriously saying that these are just saves he should be making?" The guy has kept us in flipping I don't know how many games. Admittedly, he's doing his job and stuff like that, but really...
Well, for 3 European games, Pat, and he's been... it has been my best player in all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So, I don't know... I don't see where the guy's coming from, I really don't.
Yeah, I didn't... I should have taken note who it was, but I couldn't believe when I read it. I was like, geez... Tell you what, look...
I think his name was Liam Carrigan.
No, it wasn't Liam. Tell you what, take him out of the team and put Zaluska in there then, and we'll see, those saves that you, in inverted commas, should be making. We'll see how many of them actually does make.
He did make a very bizarre save last night when there was a shot from long range and it just scudded right off his chest.
I actually didn't mind that when you saw the replay.
By the way, he meant it.
Yep, I think he did. I think when you look at the replay... I've never seen a
save like that in my life, it's meant.
There was a guy in front of him about 2-3 yards in front of him, and he must have completely blindsided. Yeah. So what you meant to do? You can't react to something if you can't see the...
I'm just saying, I've never seen a save like that actually meant.
It was. I thought that was good. The fact that it hit him and that far out of the goal, and didn't he just land at the guy's feet?
The fact that he stopped the goal was good enough for me.
Yep. And one other thing before we move off the Europa League thing. Now I don't know if this is true, but is it not a case that if we get out the league section or the first section into the next phase of it, that Guidetti is then eligible?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe that's true.
So the fact that you've then all of a sudden got your main goal threat back in your team could make a huge difference as well. So when you saw Skefovic last night having cramp, so that's his first real sort of major run out in the team for a long time, probably since friendly times. So all of a sudden your main goal threat's back again. So who knows? I mean, if you come up against one of those sort of lower end Champions League teams, maybe you would fancy your chances, especially at home. But I think him out of the team makes a huge difference as well. So, and I'm surprised that they didn't have. I mean, I don't think he started this way, but Johansson did really well in that sort of number 10 position against Ross County, but he wasn't playing anything near that last night, so it was more of a 4-3-3 kind of position. Whereas if the guy comes in, makes a performance like that, and plays so well to the point where he's almost man of the match, and then you could take him out of that position and put him in a completely different position again for the next game, is a bit surprising. I don't know.
Guys, one thing before I go, I heard I got a text message this morning when I can't remember who the last sub was. I think it was Kyle.
Yeah.
And as soon as Kyle come on, I don't know if it was evident in the telly, but apparently Griffiths taken his shirt off and threw it to where Kennedy and Collins was sitting.
All right.
So he kind of done a Balotelli.
Yeah.
You know
well, that says a lot about that wee man's attitude.
So
says a lot about his attitude.
My attitude was, when I heard it this morning, was, well, if he's done that, basically, I'm a traditionalist. You don't do that. I personally think he'll go now in January, because obviously his attitude is stinking.
Well, Alistair, see, I mean, if that is true, that's what happened. Because I don't know if it was or not, but if that's what he did, the wee man's on the bench for a reason, right? He's not world class. I've always said on here that to me he's always been Hibernian class. No disrespect to Hibernian, but for me he's not good enough to be a Celtic player. I'm happy with when he scores goals for us, but I do not think he's Celtic class, that wee man. And his attitude stinks. He's quite arrogant, and there's nothing worse than an average footballer that's arrogant. And again, to me, that just sums the wee guy up. His attitude was obviously, he's needing goals here. You're not putting me, the wonder striker, on. Shove it up your whatever. Nah, that's sad if that's the case, and I will not miss that wee man if he does go in January. I'll tell you that now.
Well, I think there'll be a fair turnover of players again in January. I'm convinced of it, because I think 2 or 3 players are letting the manager down and hiding. I think that's obvious to me. And when Brown has to come out and say it, then when Brown has to come out and say, look, I think people are hiding, I think that's the only thing you can do. Get rid of those players. Now, I don't know who they are. I've got ideas who they are.
Yeah, but you can kind of tell by some of the performances. You can kind of tell. And again, one of those players that I would think is Chris Commons. I mean, he's made it known. I think he said already, I didn't read the article, but I've heard people saying that he'd quite happily join up with Neil Lennon again. Neil Lennon's made it quite clear he wants to take him to Bolton. He's not exactly set the heather on fire this season for us, Chris Commons. He was superb for his last season. He's capable, but if his heart's not in it and he doesn't want to play for a new manager, whether he agrees with his philosophies in football or not, these guys are professionals. You've got to do as your boss tells you. And if these guys, if their hearts aren't in it, they need to find pastures new.
Well, like his style is trying to play a system, so you need certain players to play that system. And I reckon with the question of getting out of the group in Europe, I think we're nailed on to get that group, because using the same philosophy of Vauxhall Astra tried really hard last night, because that's statistically that happens all the time. We're sitting top of the group and we've not hit any good form yet. So by law of averages, we should start improving. And I reckon as well, I'm not saying by any means we're going to win the Europa Cup, but when you look at statistics over the years, the teams who set the heather on fire, and I'll go on record and say this just now, I don't think Real Madrid or Barcelona or Chelsea are going to win a European Cup this year. Usually, or even Bayern Munich maybe, usually the teams that set the heather on fire right away, that's not the teams that win the big tournaments. So I
They're
reckon
done now.
I
They're
think
done now.